During the presidential campaign of 1980, Ronald Reagan famously asked American voters if they were better off then than they were before President Carter had been elected 4 years earlier. Voters, of course, responded overwhelmingly that they were not better off. Carter had raised taxes, increased regulations, borrowed heavily, had a meek foreign policy, and was an uninspiring leader. He had encouraged folks to wear sweaters rather than turn up the heat during the winter. He refused to permit American athletes to compete in the 1980 Summer Olympics because the old Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan. Remember that? And inflation was out of control. Reagan, of course, cut taxes in his first year. By 1988, most Americans could honestly say that they were better off after the Reagan years than they had been after the Carter years. Yesterday, in an interview with ABC News commentator George Stephanopoulos, President Obama was asked a variant of President Reagan's famous question. Here's how he answered.
Well, I don't think they're better off than they were 4 years ago. They're not better off than they were before Lehman's collapsed, before the financial crisis, before this extraordinary recession that we're going through.
What's that all about? Is the president trying to take the wind out of the sails of his critics by admitting failure before he is accused of it? Is he trying to change people's minds by changing the subject? Does he even know what he's doing? Barack Obama is the most faithful disciple of FDR that has ever occupied the White House. He truly believes that he is the smartest person in the room, that he knows how you should live your life better than you do, and he is willing to use the power of government to bend your behavior to his will. He has signed legislation into law that will permit bureaucrats to regulate the financial services industry in such a way as to remove your freedom to spend, save, and invest your own money as you wish. He has signed legislation into law that will regulate the healthcare industry by forcing you to purchase a product that you might not want, perhaps can't afford, from a company you never heard of, as a condition of living in the United States, and that will expose your private medical records to government bureaucrats whenever they want to see them. He has borrowed more money in his 2.5 years in office than any other president has in 8 years in office, nearly $6 trillion. Under his watch, the cost of corn, cotton, and gasoline have shot up by more than 25%. Under his watch, 1 in 7 Americans is receiving food stamps from the federal government. During his watch, half of all Americans receive some sort of financial assistance from some government. Under his watch, half of all Americans pay no taxes. He has mastered the art of taking wealth from those who work and giving it to his wealthy business, banking, and labor union friends to support their industries. Under his watch, 15 million Americans are looking for jobs every day. Now, this is not to suggest that he inherited an economy that was all wine and roses, but it is to argue that his rigid big government ideology, his disdain for the free market, and his mistrust for your right to make free choices has made the economy and thus your freedom far worse today than it was when he became president. When the government borrows against the future, it drives up prices, so everything costs more. And after you buy what you need, you have far less money remaining. And he has thumbed his nose at the Constitution, which he took an oath to uphold. When he starts a war without seeking a declaration of war from Congress, as the Constitution requires, he sets himself up above the law. And when he becomes judge, jury, and executioner of an American in a foreign country in defiance of the Constitution and federal law, can we expect that the government killing of Americans in America can be far behind? Is it any wonder that his candor reveals an unhappy truth? Only he is better off than 4 years ago.